नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयं उदीरयेत्। शृण्वतां स्वकथा कृष्णा पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तनः हृदयान्तस्थो हि अभद्राणि विदुनोति सुहृत्सतां नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवते उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. Today we are reading from Canto 5, Chapter 1, verses 22 and 23. Text 22. Manurapi pare naivam pratisandita manoratah surarsi varanumate natmajam akiladara mandala sthiti गुप्तया आस्थाप्य स्वयं अति विषम विषया विष जलाशयाशया उपरा Rama. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Swayambhuva Manu, with the assistance of Lord Brahma, thus fulfilled his desires with the permission of the great sage Narada. He delivered to his son the governmental responsibility for maintaining and protecting all the planets of the universe. He thus achieved relief from the most dangerous, poisonous ocean of material desires. Purport. Swayambhuva Manu was practically hopeless because such a great personality as Narada was instructing his son Priyavrata not to accept household life. Now he was very pleased that Lord Brahma had interfered by inducing his son to accept the responsibility for ruling the government of the universe. From Bhagavad Gita, we get information that Vaivasvata Manu was the son of the sun god and that his son Maharaja Ikshvaku ruled this planet Earth. Swayambhuva Manu, however, appears to have been in charge of the entire universe and he entrusted to his son Maharaja Priyavrata the responsibility for maintaining and protecting all the planetary system. Dhara Mandala means planet, this earth. For instance, is called Dhara Mandala. Akhila, however, means all or universal. It is therefore difficult to understand where Maharaja Priyavrata was situated, but from this literature, its position certainly appears greater than that of Vaivasvata Manu, for he was entrusted with all the planetary systems of the entire universe. Another significant statement is that Swayambhuva Manu took great satisfaction from abnegating the responsibility for ruling all the planetary systems of the universe. At present, politicians are very eager to take charge of the government and they engage their men in canvassing from door to get votes to win the post of president or a similar exalted office. On the contrary, however, herein we find that King Priyavrata had to be persuaded by Lord Brahma to accept the post of emperor of the entire universe. Similarly, his father Swayambhuva Manu felt relieved to entrust the universal government to Priyavrata. Thus, it is evident that the kings and executive heads of the government in the Vedic age never accepted their position for sense enjoyment. Such exalted kings, who were known as Rajarshis, ruled only to maintain and protect the kingdom for the welfare of the citizens. The history of the Priyavrata and Swayambhuva Manu describes how exemplary, responsible monarchs performed the duties of the government with disinterest, keeping themselves always aloof from the contamination of material attachment. Material affairs have here been compared to the ocean of poison. They have been described in similar way by Srila Narottama Dasa Thakura in one of his songs. Samsara Vishanale Divanishi Hiya Jwale Judaitena Kainu Upaya. My heart is always burning in the fire of material existence. I have made no provisions for getting out of it. Golokera Premadana Hari Nama Sankirtana Satina Jala Mila Kene Taya. The only remedy is Harinama Sankirtana, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is imported from the spiritual world. Golok Vrindavana, how unfortunate I am that I have no attraction for this. Manu wanted to take shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, and therefore, when his son Priyavrata took charge of his worldly affairs, Manu was very relieved. That is the system of Vedic civilization. At the end of life, one must free himself from worldly affair and completely engage in the service of the Lord. The word Vara Anumatena is also significant. Manu entrusted the government to his son with the permission of the great saint Narada. This is particularly mentioned because although Narada wanted Priyavrata to become free from all material affairs, when Priyavrata took charge of universe by the request of Lord Brahma and Manu, Narada was also very pleased. Text 23. इतिहास वाव स जगत्तिपतिर् ईश्वरेच्छाया दिने वेशिता कर्माधिकारो अखिल जगत् बंध ध्वंसन परानुभावस्य भगवता आदिपुरुषस्यांग्रि युगला नवरता ध्यानानुभावेन परिरन्धिता कसायासयो अवदातो अपिमाना वर्धनो महतां महितलम् अनुशंसा. Translation. Following the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Maharaja Priyavrata fully engaged in worldly affairs. Yet he always thought of the lotus feet of the Lord, which are the cause of liberation from all material attachments. Although Priyavrata Maharaja was completely freed from all material contamination, he ruled the material world just to honor the orders of his superiors. The words Mana Vardhano Mahatam, just to show honor to superiors, are very significant. Although Maharaja Priyavrata was already a liberated person, had no attraction for material things. He engaged himself fully in governmental affairs just to show respect to Lord Brahma. Arjuna had also acted in the same way. Arjuna had no desire to participate in political affairs or fighting the Kurukshetra, but when ordered to do so by Supreme Lord Krishna, he executed those duties very nicely. One who always thinks of the lotus feet of Lord is certainly above all the contamination of the material world, as stated in Bhagavad Gita. Yoginamapi sarvesham madgatenantaratmana Shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. Of all yogis, he who always abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all. Bhagavad Gita 6.47. Maharaja Priyavrata therefore was a liberated person and was among the highest of yogis. Yet superficially he became the emperor of the universe in accordance with the order of Lord Brahma. Showing respect to his superior in this way was the another of his extraordinary qualification, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 17, verse 28. Narayana parasarve na kutaschana bibhyati swargapavarga narkeshvapi tulyartha darshinaha. A devotee who is actually advanced is not afraid of anything, provided he has the opportunity to execute the order of Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the proper explanation of why Priyavrata engaged in worldly affairs, although he was a liberated person. Also, only because of the principles does a Mahabhagavata, who has nothing to do with the material world, come down to the second platform of devotional service to preach the glories of the Lord all over the world. End of the purport. नमो विष्णु पदाय कृष्ण प्रस्ताय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी इति नामने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणी निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे. जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्तवृंद. हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. I like to seek blessings for all the assembled devotees. Please forgive me for any shortcomings, and thank you for the opportunity to purify myself. So I took some notes from lecture by His Grace Radhesham Prabhu. Coming to this chapter 1, activities of Maharaja Priyavrata, until yesterday from verses 1 to 21, King Parikshit wonders how a self-realized devotee like Maharaja Priyavrata could live in household life, which usually causes karmic bondage. But he is puzzled how someone attached to family life could still attain the highest perfection in Krishna consciousness. So then Sukadeva Goswami explains that a true devotee never loses spiritual advancement, even if temporarily facing obstacles. So Priyavrata was highly realized through the guidance of Narada Muni and preferred full devotion rather than ruling the world. But still, he hesitated to refuse his father's request because ruling was his duty. Then Lord Brahma personally descended and instructed Priyavrata that everyone must follow the orders of Supreme Lord. No one, not even great beings, can avoid divine will. All living beings act according to their nature, karma, and the system of Varnashram. So liberation depends not on external lifestyle, but on controlling mind and senses. A self-controlled person remains spiritually safe even in household life, while one without control remains bound even in the forest. So Lord Brahma advised Priyavrata to perform his worldly duty while remaining devoted to the Lord, assuring that he would remain spiritually free. So accepting this instruction with humility, Priyavrata obeyed and took up the rulership. So Lord Brahma then returned to his abode and satisfied. So in the coming to verse 22, here, this verse discusses, Radhesham Prabhu was discussing the concept of the leadership and management from spiritual perspective, and also drawing insights from, ancient Vedic texts like Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Prabhu elaborates on why managerial service can be like a poison waters if one lacks the spiritual training and self-control. The key points covered here was the example of Maharaj Priyavrata and Swayambhu Manu. Here, how Swayambhu Manu willingly relinquished his universal governmental responsibilities to his son Priyavrata. Then he's feeling relieved from the poisonous ocean of material desires. So this contrasts the modern politicians who eagerly seek power. So in the current world, right, you know uh, even in the corporate world or material world, in the political system, many a times people are eager to seek the power. So when it comes by Krishna's mercy, that is natural to us, then one can fulfill that uh, uh, that role or that leadership, without affecting their spiritual life. Otherwise, it's fully material, fully entangling, fully bonding, and it's only for their own self pressure, and it's like a power struggle or retaining power. A lot of times we see that there is a limit on how many times one president can stay in the power. When it comes to when they come to power, they try to alter, they stay longer, they do everything to maintain their position. They go to any limit. Their main purpose is to protect the people, but rather they change the system, make people to accept them as their leaders forever, and do whatever they like to do for their only self pleasures and their material advancement. So, but in the if you see in this verse, further explain in detail for the purport, the purpose of kingship in the Vedic age. Kings in the Vedic is known as they are Rajarshis, accepted their position not for personal enjoyment, but for the welfare and protection of their citizens. And then they also remain detached from material contamination. Here, material affairs are compared to a poisonous ocean. In Narottama Das Thakura's song, to emphasize that material existence is like a burning fire, and the only remedy is chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And also there should be importance of spiritual training for leaders. The speaker explained that without spiritual training, which includes controlling the senses, purifying the mind, and developing the detachment, accepting a leadership role can be a dangerous, and which leads to dissatisfaction. Using the example of King Hiranyakashipu, a lot of times we see corporate world people become CEOs and higher authorities, but when it comes to trainings and guidance, they always do seek from spiritual leaders or leaders who can teach the corporate lessons, because life is very simple. But if only they build on their own material certificates or material degrees, when it comes to reality, it's hard to manage without having a spiritual knowledge, or at least not learning from the scriptures some lessons, some teachings, which can give them a big picture how to learn and practice and implement those learnings into the day-to-day life. And also it is also discussed that how controlling one's mind and senses are very crucial for effective management and leadership. As taught in Bhagavad Gita, right, self-control and mind management is very important. and also how to deal with difficulties. Here common challenges faced by leaders are resolving the conflicts, bringing out cooperation, resisting temptation related to wealth and opposite sex. Um, so the ideal leader should not hanker for privileges, but they accept them as a service. And they share credit with the team members, remain transparent, always remembering that they are instruments of the spiritual master and Krishna. So I think the key thing here is, are we doing because Krishna wants us to do, or we are part of Krishna's plan, or we are instrument to Krishna's plan. Rather, we want to achieve something and we want to anchor for them, we over endeavor them, and then we want a Krishna's support. I think that's where the main difference lies, what we want versus what Krishna wants us to. So as long as we align and chant and connect that, what is our dharma, what is our nature, accordingly if we choose our profession and our role, I think things will go easily and more conducive to the spiritual life. Many times people want to achieve or grasp some role or some action, and then they are bound by that entanglement, and it comes hard for them, and also it does not give you any peace, it does not give you any satisfaction in the long run. So coming to the verse 23, in this verse 23, it's focused on mostly importance of obedience, respect, and duty, and to the superiors. So Prabhupada mentioned in the part, but Manvardhan Mahatam, Prabhu explained the term Manvardhan Mahatam, showing honor to the superiors. Even if one is highly advanced spiritually, he emphasized that even advanced devotees like King Priyavrata performed worldly duties to set an example and show respect to the authorities. When Brahma asked him to take the role, he just accepted as a honor to the superiors. And also importance of taking a shelter, um, comparing it to refuge from the storm. He illustrates that with an analogy of calves half print, filling with the water, providing shelter for the ants, symbolizing how Krishna provides ultimate shelter for all beings. And Prabhu discusses the necessity of a king or leader in the society, comparing a society without a king is to a herd of sheep without a shepherd, and emphasizes that king's duty is to protect the citizens, ensuring their welfare and preventing chaos. And also one has to balance the duty and spiritual practices, both, challenge of balancing both world duties with a spiritual aspiration. Here, Prabhu mentioned about the example of King Janaka Maharaj, who despite being a king, but he was a Jivan Mukta, liberated soul, because he performed his duties without attachment, setting an example for others. And Prabhu talked about four classes of disciples based on their obedience. First class is understands and executes instructions immediately, even with minimal prompting. The second class of devotees needed details, instructions about, and will follow them precisely. And third class of devotees are they who procrastinate and needs to be forced and complete tasks quickly. But the last fourth class devotees are completely disobedient, requires the superior to do task themselves. So this illustrates the importance of obedience in spiritual and world affairs. And in this regard, Prabhu gave the example of Garuda and Kaliya. Example shared the story of Garuda and Kaliya from Srimad Bhagavatam, where how Garuda respected arrangements made by Lord Brahma and Vasuki, while Kaliya did not, so leading to his suffering. This illustrates that importance of respecting superiors and their arrangements. And Garuda's higher nature, obedience and respect, while as Kaliya's lower nature, desire for independence and self-mastery, stating that later hinders the spiritual progress. So, and this whole session concludes that idea that all problems are solved when one becomes Krishna consciousness. So in summary, these two verses talks about duty performed for Lord does not cause bondage. Leadership is a sacred service, not for personal gain or material desires. And spiritual advancement depends on obedience to Guru and Krishna. Pure devotee remains liberated even while active in the world. And the ultimate goal of life is fully absorption in devotional service, taking a shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna. I think with that I conclude today's section. Please forgive me for any shortcomings. Vancha kalpatarubhasya krupa sindhu